Hello, welcome to Pacecast.
Hey,
This is myself, James Simpson from Pace, and we've got Taj joining us as well this week. So we thought we'd put together a quick podcast or live stream. We're kind of
yes,
interchanging terms at the minute. Still deciding what it's going to be, but we figured we should just get going and get it live.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Might as well start, right? I
yeah,
mean,
for sure. Hello, welcome to
hey,
Pacecast. There
yeah.
we
So
go.
this,
And this is myself, James Simpson. I've got a Pace, and there we go. A nice, the usual streaming cock up of having the audio playing back. There we go. It's fixed.
this will probably happen more often. I mean, this is the first stream of this pace cast, so I'm sure we'll find some bugs
Yeah,
along the
for
way. But
sure. And
um,
unfortunately, with Taj being in the Netherlands, it's a little bit more complicated than
yes,
what I'm used to. So we've had to do a lot of bug fixing and messing around with audio and stuff, but we're good to go, it seems.
bit of internet, bit of magic, and
Yes.
hopefully it will work out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes,
So I'm just going to do a couple of quick checks, and we're all good, I think. So yeah. So anyway, let's get started.
yes,
So basically, with Pacecast, we thought we'd get together and kind of just have a weekly discussion about what's going on in the drift world, and talk about the latest parts and news and events and fun stuff. Really, um, obviously we've both been involved in doing some sort of live streams and videos and stuff for many years, but we've never actually done anything together. I don't think.
well, we've been on the waffle time at Soul RC
That's
a
true.
long, long
Yeah,
time
that's true.
ago. So
That
that's
was,
one.
what did we decide? That
Yeah,
was 3 years ago, something like that. In fact, more than 3 years, I think.
2014, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly.
yeah,
15 maybe?
something
Long
like
time ago.
that. Yeah, and we've also
Yeah.
done the Wreck 'Em All video a few
Yeah, yeah,
times at the
you were in that
Worlds.
as well with our amazing host Bob at the time.
Yeah.
Great videos, yeah. Yes.
Hey, Valka.
All right.
We've
Yeah.
got some chat going on,
All right, cool. Yeah, some
which is all
viewers
good.
already, so that's good to see. That's
Yes.
a
So
good start. Let's see where it brings us. Yeah, every week. That's the plan, right?
yeah.
For if it's possible.
So anyway, I suppose we should probably introduce ourselves. So
Sure.
I'm James Simpson. I currently work for RC Boss over in Denmark, but I'm based in the UK. I've been doing RC drifting for since 2012, I think it was. Before that, I was working at Driftworks, and yeah, we kind of, well, I think we were going for quite a while with the RC drifting, just for fun. But basically, I've been full time since the end of 2012 now. Um, so yeah, it's been my full time job for a while, and we're now at the point where I'm sorry, I'm trying to get another track open here in the UK. But for now, sorry, I've just got a weird bug ties. If you don't mind, just if you want to introduce yourself while I fix this.
Sure,
I
no
think the stream's
problem.
dropping.
So yeah, so I'm Thijs. I'm from the Netherlands, as you mentioned already. So that's why this stream is a bit difficult to set up sometimes, but we're getting through with it. Yeah, I've been in drifting or RC drifting for a long time now. This year actually marks my 15th year with RC drifting. That's before we had any tires or cars specifically for RC drifting available. And RC even from way before that. Like drifting is not the only thing I do. It is the main thing, but I like to play around with buggies and vintage RC cars as well. So yeah, my house is full of them. Um, yeah, and I've been doing competitions, events, and everything basically since I started with the RC drifting. So yeah, it's been a long time, a lot of experiences, a lot of different cars. So I'm sure we'll get into a bunch of those things throughout these episodes, throughout these podcasts.
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, the
Yeah.
the bug is fixed. Crisis averted. My PC decided to do a Windows restart for an update,
All
which
right.
is obviously just what you want. So yeah. Anyway, so basically, I can't remember where I got to, but for myself, I'm only really interested in RC drifting. I've got some other
Mm.
fun RC stuff, but for me, it's all about the drift. Whether it's full size or RC, it's kind of one of my main passions, and so for me, it's mainly my focus. I like to do a lot of traveling and go to RC drift tracks across the world. and hopefully this year we'll get to do a bit more of that. That was my plan for last year, but then life took over. So this year, well, we've already started with a nice fun trip to Denmark, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah, it was a good start of the year already.
Yeah, for sure.
first month, first trip. So let's keep that going.
Yeah. I think maybe it's going to be less than a trip a month, but that would be nice.
The dream, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what did you start with,
Yeah.
Taj? What was your first drift car?
First drift car. Well, I started out with a Tamiya TT01, where before the drift version of it was available. So it's not a proper drift car, but it was all that was available at the time, all we knew. First proper drift car was probably my Yokomo DRB,
Yeah.
which I had for a long time. You've seen it as well, probably.
Yeah.
Back in the CS, the good old CS
Yes.
times.
Back in the day. It's one of those chassis. I've never had one myself, and even now I look at a DRB and I'm like, ooh, maybe I should grab one.
It's such a pretty car. I miss it so many times. I'm very sad I sold it, but I had to. Right?
Yeah.
We had to move on with the technology.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, it's one of those chassis I think I'd build and chuck it on a shelf and forget about it. Unless I had a track set up and ready to go, it's it's never going to get used over the more modern stuff.
No, it would probably not work too well without modifying the heck out of it. But
no, well, it's
just so pretty on the shelf.
Yeah, well, I started out with an MR4 belt drive, a Chris Granger edition. Drive. Yeah, it was. So I was at Driftworks, and the guys went and filmed Outsiders, and came back with the idea of getting into RC drifting. So we got going, and I tried a couple of people's car, Matt Tunks and Mittos, and I think Phil had a DRB as well. And then I thought I'd dip my toes in the water and picked up a very cheap, very old touring car. That was perfect. It was someone's spare car, so it had never been used, it had never been built. And very quickly learnt that trying to use a touring car for drifting is not really that fun, because you end up modifying one thing, then modifying the next thing, then modifying the next thing, just to get a bit of luck, and then and then trying to have it not break itself. So it took me a while, but I ended up moving on to a DIB, which made life so much easier. It was ridiculous, because not only did it work out the box, but you could just buy parts for it. You didn't have to make everything and find something that would do a job that could be combined with something else to make a pulley that you needed, or cut things to make them work better. You could just buy the part from Yokomo, which was amazing. And it was
a great time though, because
it was a novel
back then. I remember every single pulley size of every brand of touring car, and because we had to mix and match everything together, which was fun.
You had to remember that information, or you ended up buying the wrong pulley more than one time.
Yeah,
you wanted a 12-tooth pulley or whatever, so you'd buy the square one, and then you'd find out it's got the wrong shaft size or whatever. So you'd end up having to order another one. At the time, everything used to have to come all the way from Japan and sit in customs, and you're buying from one or two shops, maybe 3 or 4 if you included the dodgy ones, and you'd place an order and it'd be sometimes 3 months until you saw the parts. So yeah, as soon as I got DIB, I just started buying double of everything. If I needed belts, I ordered 4 belts. If I needed knuckles, I ordered 2 in case. I think I quickly realised that if I didn't need them, I could sell them to somebody else, because they didn't want to have to order from Japan. So I ended up setting up a little side business that ended up turning into the rest of everything.
We're very spoiled nowadays with everything being readily available.
Yeah, for sure.
Local shops.
It's sometimes take it for granted, I think, how easy it is to get hold of stuff, particularly the weird stuff, the things you don't think you're going to need, and even just getting hold of wires. I was helping someone the other day with some servo splitters or Y cables, and it's like that stuff a while back was quite hard, because if your local model shop didn't have it, you had to do some googling, and you might find someone like Hobby King that had them, but there was a good chance you'd be spending your evening looking for something, and then maybe it wouldn't show up. Yeah, it's kind of worked out.
Or within 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it's it always sucked to have something on the table and not being able to fix it for weeks.
And I remember a couple of times helping people out and lending them a belt for a DIB, and then my belt would then break and I wouldn't have one. And I should have kept hold of it.
It's one of the good things about drifting, though. Everyone's always prepared to help you out.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something I learned really quickly. I mean, like I said, I'm into pretty much everything that's RC, but that's why I keep coming back to drifting because
Yeah,
yeah, it's not too competitive. We're all there for the fun, which is nice to see.
yeah, man. So what are you driving now?
Same as you actually. An
Yes.
Overdose GALM. Well, I mean, it's one of the cars. I'm sure you also
Yeah,
have plenty, but
yeah,
the main one, this one right here, that's my Overdose GALM, which is pretty stock. Um, last weekend when we were at Cookies, I changed the knuckles, which was the first major modification I think I did to it.
yeah,
But yeah, it's pretty stock. It has MST dampers, slide rack, knuckles, counter drive. That's it.
yeah. It's good fun,
Everything
man.
else is standard. It does very well. I was pleasantly surprised. Let me put it like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
we're kind of GARM buddies at the minute. I've been running a GARM since they launched, and
yeah.
I love it. It's one of those things where I'm a world team driver now, but even if I wasn't, I'd still be running it.
Hmm.
For me, I love the way it works. I love working on it, and I just stick with it. There's something about that chassis that means I set it up faster and I get it driving better than anything else. And yeah, I wouldn't swap it for anything.
For some reason, I always end up with the belt drive chassis. That's why I went with the DRB.
Yeah,
It took me a long time to find a replacement for that with the RMX. So when I saw that came out with the rear motor layout, belt drive, that was the one for me. And now also again, it took me way too long to find something new. But the Galm is good. I like it. It's so simple. That's
yeah,
why it's so good.
yeah, for
Everything's
sure.
open. It's very easy to work on.
I also
I
like that you've
really,
got so many options. If you want to change it up, you can change it massively with the drive options or the front end or whatever. You can have the IFS, or you can have the upright dampers. You can have, I think it's 5 different drive options in the back. Um, and
something like that. Yeah.
there's not many chassis that let you do that. So it just means if things are getting a bit boring, you can spice it up a bit and mix it around.
Yeah. To be fair though, YD2, same story.
Yeah,
There's so many different versions of it. Um,
yeah, for sure.
that's it's like I said, we're spoiled now for choice. There's
Yeah,
so much available. It's really good.
yeah. And it used to be that you'd wait quite a while until there was a new drift chassis come out. Now
Mm.
it's not that long at all. It used to be that you could have everything because you'd buy one chassis a year and you pretty much got the latest and greatest thing. Now it's slowed down a bit, but it got a bit crazy for a while.
Yeah. So what about your chassis? Because it's
Well,
quite a bit different from mine, even though they're the same base. But
yeah, well, I've got I just fired us over to that view there, and hopefully my camera won't wobble too much. But I was running it full option for quite a while, and I really loved running it full option. But on my last trip to Japan, I ended up just being a little bit heavy. So I've stripped some of the aluminium parts off and made it a little bit more lightweight and a little bit more rear biased than it was, just to make it more competitive. In all honesty, um, I ended up just before the RCDC competition I was out there for, realizing that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with people if I didn't lose a couple of 100 grams. I
Hmm.
think if I remember right, I was about 1850 with the body, um, and I ended up getting that down to around 1500, just by taking the aluminium front upper and lower arms off and a battery holder and just a few little bits that you can see there have gone back to plastic. Um, Nothing too major, and it's not a permanent solution. It's just this is what I swapped to. It's worked quite well, and since then I haven't done that much drifting because I've had some family stuff going on. So it works nicely for me for sure.
It's fun to see. It's fun to see people going back and forth between the heavy chassis and the light ones, and
Yeah,
it's it seems like it's trend based sometimes, but then on the other hand,
oh for sure.
I think a lot of it is coming from Japan as well, where there's different
Yeah,
tracks
yeah,
where
yeah, for
different things
sure.
are
I mean,
needed.
I think a big part of it is that people are watching the cool videos from Japan and they get to see something awesome happening, and they want to be part of that. The only frustrating thing for me sometimes is when people are making changes that are very specifically for a low grip surface and then they're using that on carpet and not noticing that it doesn't perform as well as they would have expected. But it's good to see people with the interest, I think, and it's also good to see people watching Japan because they're so far ahead of us, that it's good to see people are aiming for that at least, rather than just accepting as what we've got as being as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we both got to experience that firsthand. I think you even a couple times, right? Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a different world. Um, it really is next level. But I'm sure we'll get to that another moment
I'm
so
sure it's
we
going to
can
come up once or
really
twice.
dive in deep. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, the one thing I have done recently with the GALM as well when we were at Cookies is I've gone to rear ESC, which I wasn't expecting to do on this chassis. I've got another GALM that I generally test stuff out with and play around with, but I ended up just going for it because I got the new ESC, had the nice long wires, which makes it a lot easier. So and I loved it. It actually drove a lot better than I was expecting to. Not so much in terms of speed, but it just in terms of control on big angles. So yeah, for now it's sticking. When I've done a bit more carpet driving, maybe it'll go back to where it was. But for now, it was just super fun, super easy. That's what I like.
Have you put it on the scales already to see what the balance is now with the rear ESC?
No, I haven't, to be honest. I meant to do that when we were at Cookies, but I was a bit busy, so I never got around to it. But I probably should, because I would say I'm 62, 64% rear, something like that. I would have thought maybe a fraction more, but it's nothing too crazy. That's for sure. It was before I went rear ESC. It was 56 or 58%, I think. So yeah, I'll measure it at some point. We'll definitely weigh it and find out where it is.
Yeah.
I'll probably change 50 things before then, so it's all a bit irrelevant every time I weigh stuff. I just kind of stopped doing it, to be honest, for that reason.
As long as it feels right on the track, then
Yeah,
I guess it is right.
yeah, for sure. I should probably say hello to chat for now. We've got a few guys
Yeah, we
chiming
got
in.
quite a few people joining. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Still seems to be working fine. I'm a bit paranoid now because I keep getting some messages about the stream health.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm looking at the chat on my phone. So if you see my phone blinking here on the table, then that's why. So hi people in the chat, and yeah, I guess it's a bit of a surprise as well that today we out of the blue started this podcast, but it was something that was on my mind already for a while. I think for you it might be the same.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, YouTube videos are cool and all that, but it always takes a while with editing, which I don't really like to do. So this is a great way to do the same, but yeah, without having to do the edit and have people join in as well. I think that will be fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think the key for me is I like people being able to chime in and steer the conversation a little bit, or at least give us some input and opinions, rather than it just being a one-way talking street.
Yeah, exactly. So while we're still on the introductions, I know my answer already, but like share some of the best RC drifting moments. I think that would be fun to hear.
Yeah,
because I mean, like you said, you've been traveling for quite a while, here and there, all over the place, different tracks, different countries. Same for me. So
yeah, man. I think for me, one of my favourite moments has to be 2014 at the as it was, I think, the European Open. I think that was before I went to the Worlds, and I managed to pull off a fourth place. I was pretty happy with. Definitely wasn't expecting it.
Right?
That was in the oven.
In the sauna.
Yeah, I really wasn't expecting it. I kind of at that point, Mito was a much better driver than I was, so I was expecting him to definitely outperform me. But I ended up managed to get to the top four, and I lost to Takahiro after quite a few restarts for some brake checking going into the first corner.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, he ended up taking the win in that battle, unfortunately. But yeah, I loved it. It was real good memories, and it was also one of those that we'd had a bunch of guys from Norway over to Seoul RC just before, and so we got to meet up with those guys, and it was their first time competing with CS, and yeah, it was just a real good sort of atmosphere for the whole event, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I loved all of those events. That one in particular, I remember because we had to go barefoot over the track every morning, every lunchtime to find nails that were sticking up from the carpet and smack them back down.
Yeah, because obviously that was one you were judging, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I think that was the first time I officially was doing the judging on the. I think it was Worlds already back then. because we
I
had
I can't
Japanese
remember.
entrants, Russian entrants, so
Yeah, yeah.
that might have been the first Worlds.
Somewhere I should probably just check the trophy, but I'm sure it says on it. But yeah. What about
Yeah,
you? What's some of your top memories?
it's got to be Japan.
Yeah,
It's first place always.
yeah.
It's been a while already. I think it's more than 6 years ago now that I've went to Japan.
Oh,
So that was like the top days of CS driving.
yeah,
No one really was doing rear wheel drive yet. And I mean, for me back then, I wasn't traveling too much. The level here in Europe wasn't anything close to Japan. So it was a
no,
real eye opener and a big surprise. And especially the first day is also a struggle to be able to keep up with people. Um,
yeah. I know that feeling.
when there's a moment where you're in a nice train, you're tandeming, and then you realize or hear from someone that the other guys are slowing down so you can keep up and have fun.
Yeah,
You're like, ah, damn it.
that was my first experience of Japan was very, very eye opening because I went from
Mm.
being reasonably quick, and it was after I think it was December after I'd finished fourth at the Worlds or at Euros, whatever it was, and then I went to Japan and I could barely drive. I'd never driven on the surface like that. I'd never driven with the sort of speed those guys were driving at, so it's pushing me harder than I was capable of driving, and so I ended up doing a lot of one way hookups and spinning off and spitting me
Yeah.
off and just ploughing into the wall at the end of the straight and things like that, just while I tried to figure it all out. But I got there in the end. Just took me a very long time.
Yeah, it was the first time we ever played with gearing, with like making sure you match wheel speed and things like that. That was
Yeah,
all brand new. Now it might seem obvious, but at least to
yeah.
some
I
people,
think there's an awful lot of stuff that everybody knows to do now that at the time we didn't have a clue about for sure.
yeah.
I,
Asphalt tracks where you expect it's going to be grippy because that's what asphalt is here,
yeah,
and it's like driving on ice.
yeah,
It's when you walk in, you go like, ah, this is going to be easy, and
yeah,
then no way.
yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a
That
good
was
challenge.
that was tail slider circuit for me. That one where I walked in and thought, oh, this looks easy, and then I had literally had people stopping on the track to let me catch up.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, like I said, like where you find out people are slowing down just for you.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. All right. Yeah, we also talked about the event last weekend in Denmark. So maybe let's talk about that for a little bit more.
Yeah, well,
So
it was kind of a super fun weekend for us. Well, for me at
for
least.
sure,
Um,
I really enjoyed it as well.
and that was the kind of the point of the weekend is we didn't want to do a competition. We didn't want to do anything that was going to be high pressure or even sort of add to any sort of level of competitiveness. We just wanted people to
Mm.
come and enjoy themselves. So all we did was we opened the cookie shop and track as long as we possibly could each day. So we were open from reasonably early morning till late at night, and it was free. We didn't charge to use the shop or anything like that. So we filled up the event. I think we set a limit of 40 places just to account for the number of pit spaces that are there. And also, we didn't want it to be too rammed. We could have added some more tables and chairs and things like that, but we didn't want it to be completely rammed on track all day. And I think we got the balance perfect because it was busy enough that it was always fun, but it wasn't
Mm.
so busy that you didn't want to go on track.
Yeah, like for me, like I wanted to go to cookies for such a long time and kept putting it off. So when I saw you posting the invite basically on Facebook, yeah, it wasn't really
Yeah,
a question to go.
unfortunately,
But yeah,
we had to say no to a few people, but
mm,
we're going to do another. That's for
I was
sure.
quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it was
Uh,
really good. We had guys coming from everywhere. We had Asif come all the way from Kuwait, which was amazing. Um,
yeah.
and then there's a bunch of guys from Norway and Sweden, myself and Bauke from the Netherlands, along with Davey and Zander and Hester.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's interesting because usually with these kind of international events, like for example, Italian Sideways, a few of the other ones, we've been to Spain, to Prague, and Czech, a few other places. It's always a competition.
Yeah,
So this one wasn't, which I liked, but like I mean, you were the organizer together with Cookies.
yeah.
So why go for this kind of event, not a competition?
Because I think the problem with competitions is they're really good and it lets everyone push themselves. But it's early in the year and people are taking Christmas off, they've had a break, and it's good to get everyone together just for the social side of things. There's a lot of people came to the event that I haven't seen since the Worlds last year, and if there's a competition, then those guys and myself, or those guys and other guys, there's a rivalry that needs to be built up. And for me, I'd rather they were there just to hang out and learn stuff. Because that's the other thing is in Europe there's not that many people that run exclusively on concrete or low grip surfaces. There are some, but in terms of a percentage, it's pretty low. So I think it's better to just let people come and test the surface they maybe haven't driven very much or at all. There's quite a few guys. I can't remember the number, but there's a reasonable number of guys that have never driven on concrete before, and so for them to be able to do that and have it in a low pressure environment means they got more out of it and they got time to work on their car and tune their car and learn more. And I think it just leads to a sort of happier atmosphere. There's definitely a time and a place for competitions, and I enjoy doing a competition every now and then. But I think if it's my choice, I'd rather just have everyone together for a bit of fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's the same. Like, it's funny. I'm one of those people who really likes RC drifting, but I don't like driving much, or at least not for a long time in one go. So I usually stop after 10 minutes or so,
Yeah,
then relax for a bit, and then drive another 10 minutes, and basically that's my day. So then an event like this is great, where you can just chat, drive other people's cars,
yeah, for sure.
which you normally don't have the time for at a
Yeah,
competition because everyone's just tuning.
yeah, and also maybe there's not so much open track time because there's a main competition track and then a small practice
Yeah,
track. Whereas
yeah,
it's just
specific time slots. Yeah,
12, 14 hour days. Just drive as much as you want, and there's times where you can sort of drive too much and you end up wanting to drive someone else's car, so you can switch with somebody. And it's like when you drove my car, you didn't
hmm,
do 2 laps, you did like 15 or 20 minutes because there's
yeah,
time. You don't feel the pressure to give the car back because that guy's got to practice and get on for a competition. um, and I like that. I think it works well, and like I say, I think we're definitely going to do it again, um, probably later this year for sure.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how it usually ends up for me. That I drive, I think, other people's cars almost as much as my own,
Yeah,
just because people are also they're also always interested in your opinion. So they go like, "Here you go. Here's my transmitter. Have a go. See what you think. See how it feels."
yeah,
Which is always fun because every car is different. And especially on a new surface like this, like concrete for me, that was pretty new, at least for rear wheel drive. On
yeah,
CS, I've done it plenty, but rear wheel drive, I think this was the second time I've been driving on concrete, and the first time it was on
yeah,
painted concrete, so very different. Also with a different car. So with the GALM, this was the first time. So it's nice to have, for me, 4 days to sort of get to grips with it and don't feel pressured. Because if it doesn't work, then you can take the time to play around with it. It doesn't have to be within 5 minutes back on the track,
yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
it has to work, or you're screwed.
Or you haven't
Uh,
got a group time that you've got to be on for 5 minutes, and
yeah,
if something comes up just before, you've got to panic and rush to get on track, and maybe
yeah,
you only get on for a couple of laps if you've had an issue or something along those lines. I mean, even at the RCDC event I did in November, I exploded a pinion gear for the first time ever, and I lost my final practice session because by the time I got back to the pits and got another one fitted, got back to the track, the group was finishing. And I couldn't get on track, and it's like that was like 15% of all my practice time for the weekend just gone
yeah,
because of a little mistake. And then you go into the next practice or the next session super stressed because you missed a practice and you're behind everyone, and there's a lot of pressure.
yeah. Or your spot on the driver's stand is gone, and you're
Yeah,
looking from a different angle.
yeah,
That's the
I've
worst.
had that before as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, here it's nice. Like this weekend, we could just sit on the stools as well. Like I normally don't like sitting while driving, but with this it's
yeah,
pretty good
yeah, I'm
because
the
it's
same.
so easy paced.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you make a mistake. You don't have to be
yeah,
on it every single lap, and I think that's the important thing with an event like that is you're just there to have fun. So you do stupid stuff and you practice crazy stuff and you'll try settings you think might not work. You'll learn something, or you'll just relax and enjoy yourself. Even the layout we were running was a bit stupid because we had cut throughs. So
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Speaking of crazy stuff,
yeah,
the layout, yeah. When we arrived on Thursday, I figured like, oh, this is gonna work now when it's only 5 of us driving, but with the full track, it's not gonna work.
no.
And there were some near misses, but
There was a couple of bailouts where people maybe could have
yeah,
gone for it but weren't so sure. But I think there was
yeah,
only 1 or 2 big crashes, and to be honest,
yeah.
they would have probably happened anyway. Just people making mistakes
I
going
hope
in.
some people made some videos of the track because it was quite fun.
Yeah, it
Like the
was.
loop arounds where you had to cross. So basically, you just had a big two intersections on the track with 20 people in the train, 20 cars in the
Yeah,
train.
and it worked. It
It's
worked because you just got the last car coming through when the next car was
yeah, when
coming.
the first one comes around. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was good. That was fun.
but it was good because I'd seen photos of Martin's, because Martin, the shop manager at Cookies, had set that truck up, and I'd seen photos and I'd seen him running it, and it looked fun, but I wasn't sure if it was right for what I wanted. And as soon as I turned up and people were running, I was like, no, this is fine, this is perfect, because as soon as you see a few cars running instead of just the one car testing it, you definitely you get a different vibe, and it worked great. It was super fun, and it's, as I say, that was kind of the point of the weekend.
Yeah, yeah, plenty of trains, and I think this might have been the first time where I actually saw multiple laps in a row where no one was making a big mistake. Like everyone was able to keep up.
Yeah, it's fun,
Uh,
and
yeah,
the standard of driving was pretty good.
mm,
Even there's a few guys that are relatively new, particularly the locals at Cookies. There's a couple of guys that had only been drifting a couple of months, few months at most, and they were doing fine. They weren't in the way, they weren't struggling, and they're on the same track as guys that have been drifting for, well, as long as you have.
yeah. Well,
And it worked.
I didn't drive my car for months, so
Yeah,
for me it was the first time out in I think 3 or 4 months. That worked pretty well for me. And I think it's also the surface and the tire combination that worked really well.
yeah,
Like because of the concrete, because of the tires we were running, uh, like having a bunch of boost set up, it didn't heat up your tires. You didn't really walk away from anyone else in the train. Like the speed was good as long as everyone had the gearing
yeah.
pretty okay. We're all on a very similar pace, which is
And
very nice. Like,
I think it only took the first day for people to sort of get pretty evenly matched, I think. And nobody was out, again, because it wasn't a competition. People weren't chasing the speed so much. They got
yeah,
to the point where they weren't slow and they weren't struggling, and then they could just settle at that. And I could definitely have made my car faster than it was at that track, but there wasn't anything to gain from it because I'd have just ended up running away from people and ruining the train. So
yeah,
um, it works out better to sort of soften the car a little bit and make it easier to drive, so you can drive more laps with less mistakes. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, it happened when the best trains. It was when someone was in the lead who wasn't pushing.
yeah,
I think I did it, and I think some others also slowed down a little so
yeah,
everyone could keep up. That was so much fun and very different from what I'm used to because normally, like I said, most of the events are comps. So
yeah.
even on the practice track, you're not really running any trains. You're not really tandeming because in the end, you're just trying to see if you have an advantage somewhere on the track, um, which didn't matter here. It was fun, but
What
there was one competition, of course, on
there
what
was.
was it, on the Sunday or the Saturday?
As a Sunday, it
Can't
was the
remember.
Sunday.
Yeah, yeah,
The whole point of the weekend is we weren't going to have any competitions, but Acuvance were kind enough to send over a motor, an ESC, and some capacitors as prizes. And obviously,
I think there was a pleasant surprise for people in the winning two teams because that
yeah,
was not announced.
no.
That was a good surprise.
Well, like I say, we didn't want to make
Yeah.
anyone become overly competitive or create any rivalries or something like that. So we decided to
Mm.
run a fun competition, which, well, we don't really have a name for it, but it's something that the Danish guys have been doing for a few years now, so they're pretty good at it. They're not
Mm.
too bad at all. But it's where you have two drivers controlling one car using one transmitter. You have one guy doing the steering, one guy doing the throttle, and we ran a little knockout battle competition, which was very fun. And what was
Yeah.
also fun is it wasn't just buddies on teams. We had guys driving with each other on the same transmitter that don't really know each other that well and stuff. So who were you with?
I was driving together with Kim. Like I only
Yeah,
met him there that weekend,
yeah,
and it went really well actually. I was a bit bummed that we hit the wall at some point because we were really going strong.
it was
But
fun.
yeah,
It was,
yeah,
like I say, it was just a fun little competition that we kind of we said we're not judging it too seriously. It's just about fun. Just let's just enjoy it and get some good driving. Actually, we were well impressed because particularly the guys that got through to the finals and close to it, they were really good. And actually, they weren't really
you
making
couldn't
too many
really tell that
mistakes.
it was. You couldn't really tell that it was 4 people, 2 cars. Like
No,
it just looked like a regular battle,
and not bad
which was
battles
good.
either, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, we Bauke and I, when we did the real good competition, we did something similar, and we called it Double Dash back then,
Yeah,
based on the Mario Kart
yeah,
game.
that makes
That
sense.
was our name for it.
But
Yeah,
yeah, no, it was really good fun, and we ended up with I forget the team names. We had stupid team names as well, but
that's part of the fun, right?
I can't remember who it was. Was it Sondra and Dennis that won, and then Cara and
Small
Joe?
guys, team
Yes,
small
that's it.
guys.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so yeah, so they got a surprise prize of the winning team got a motor and ESC to split between them, and the runners up got a raised capacitor each, which
yeah,
is a nice
yeah,
little
very
bonus.
good.
And obviously it's very nice of Acuvance to send it over. We didn't request it; it just arrived with our order, which was nice.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Acuvance,
Yes.
this weekend at Cookies, we also had one of the new Fledge motors
Yep.
to try out.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I didn't get a go.
Oh
But
really?
yeah, no, yeah, I have my motor soldered directly.
Ah, yes, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes it
yeah,
a bit tricky.
no plugs, no.
No,
No.
but
So they have a bunch of new stuff out, which is the Fledge motor,
yeah,
the new Xarvis ESC,
yeah,
the XX, right? Double X,
this
whatever
one.
it's
Yeah,
called now. There you go. Yes.
yeah. I
Yeah,
was,
so I'm sure you can share some things about that too, because
yeah, well, it was good because
yeah.
they the stock had just arrived when I got there, so I hadn't had time to
Mm.
fit one or anything like that. But when I was in Japan in November, I did get to I got to try a Fledge for 2 days, which was really nice of Acuvance. So I took it from the RCDC event, and then on the following day we went to Days Circuit, and then on Tuesday we went to Shift, which was amazing. And at Shift, Hayashi from Acuvance joined us, and he gave me 2 Xarvis XXs to try, slightly different configurations. It was still prototype phase, so I ended up testing the one that became the retail, and another one with some slight tweaks, and helped them decide which one to launch. So fast forward to Cookies last weekend, and I actually got to put one in my car and take it home and keep it. In truth be
Yeah.
told, I ended up putting 2 in my car because I broke one. But I say I broke one. I thought I found a bug, but it turns out it wasn't. It was a software glitch. So it's all been fixed and there's no problem at all. But that's why I have a second one, because it's been shipped back to me totally fine. But so the main difference really between the Xarvis and the Xarvis XX, or if I rephrase that, they're completely new. They look kind of similar. They're both aluminium cases, both similar layouts, and it looks like the difference is a different top plate and an extra fan plug. But in reality, all of the internal components are different. So with the Tachyon area, which is the ESC that came before Xarvis, it was their highest end ESC they could make at the time. And when they brought out the Xarvis, they leveled up and improved all the quality of components inside. And the Xarvis XX is kind of the same step forward. So it's a really big jump forward with mostly the quality of the MOSFETs and the circuit design. It also has reverse polarity protection, which I made good use of last weekend.
Yes.
I thought I nearly killed another ESC, but fortunately, because of that lovely feature, I killed a capacitor only. So that was good to know.
So it's tested now. At least it's
thoroughly
proven
tested.
it works.
Yep, that was all I was doing.
Works.
It's funny because I've never reversed polarity on my own car, and
It's a common issue though. Like
well, it happens to some people frequently. And I've never done it. I've always been really careful, but because I was running the rear mount ESC with the long wires, I was trying to neaten up the wiring and somehow cross the plugs over. And even though I'm running red markings on the positive, I still managed to do it through tiredness. I had a few very long days and not a lot of sleep. So yeah, it's my own fault. But I can say it works perfectly. You will melt a capacitor because it bypasses protection, so it gets direct voltage. So I didn't realize I had a problem until I felt some melting plastic on my hand, and then realized it was the case of the capacitor just dripping, which is not ideal.
So that's even better, because then it just doesn't only protect for a second, but it protects it for a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, it was a good 10 or 15 seconds for sure. Officially, Acuvance says it protects for 10 seconds, but I can tell you now it's longer than that. But yeah, so the new ESC also adds some extra features. You can increase the torque level on the motor from up to level 5, and you can also change basically you're tweaking the curve, the torque curve on the motor. You can change the endpoint, and you can also change the BEC output from 6 volts to 7.4. Which is good.
That's a good advantage, because so many of the new servos high voltage.
Yes.
Or in the specs. So when you read the specs advertised in small print, it says on 7.4 volts, not on 6, which most people are running. So
which is
all the bragging rights with a fast servo or strong servo, they're gone if you don't have 7.4 on your BEC.
And to be honest, I've never run 7.4 because none of my ESCs would do that. I've been using Acuvance ESCs. I have tested a few other ESCs over the years, but I've been using Acuvance since 2012, and I absolutely love it. Sorry, 2013, when the Euros was at Amsterdam. My first time using an Acuvance.
On the old Tachyon or the IRA?
The area. It was was relatively new at the time. I think it was out a couple of months or something like that, and I did half a lap and blew an ESC and motor because it had been soldered wrong. But they're the only two I've ever damaged, which is good.
Yes.
But
maybe that's another nice advantage of them, because I saw them in the box. At least at RC Boss, you have the black wires on them. So is that something that comes standard, or?
Yes, it is, and that's actually something we got them to do a few years ago now. We got sick of buying ESCs that cost quite a lot of money and having to desolder the wires to put black wires on, because we didn't like the orange and yellow and blue
the
wires.
Rainbow spaghetti.
Yeah, we thought it was pretty
ugly. It's one
of
the biggest eyesores with most of the ESCs. I don't even understand why some put them, some brands, when you still have to solder them on, they give you like a bundle.
Yes, I get it when it's
wires.
I get it when it's like a beginner, and it's a base spec ESC for a beginner. It makes it easy to make sure you're plugging it in right and things like that.
If it's soldered on, but not if they come loose. If you still have to solder on the terminals and the wires, then you might as well go straight for something proper.
Yeah,
but
even if it's just different shades or something. But yeah, no. So we got them to change that a few years ago, and to be honest, they've never looked back. They love it now. So you can buy all of the receiver wires and things like that in all black as well. But yeah, I think it looks great. And for me, it's like I say, I got to test it before, so I knew what I was going to get. But it's different when you're testing in a more familiar area. So I've driven the cookies plenty of times, and I got to play with it for a bit more time and get my settings dialed, and it's awesome. Absolutely love it. One of the big differences,
with more people around as well, right? Because
and
you weren't the only one this weekend driving with this ESC, because I heard plenty of people talking about the new torque settings and playing around with it. That's the nice thing about having a 4-day event.
There was quite a few guys that bought them at the event, got them installed by Martin. Martin did like 3 days solid soldering. He broke his soldering iron. He had to get a replacement soldering iron, and it was a bit crazy, to be honest. But yeah, no, it was great to have everyone testing it and running them. One of the big differences as well is the Xarvis XX has a much higher output than a Xarvis. The Xarvis is somewhere around 130 amps, something like that, and the XX is 190. But it's all kind of relative, because it depends on your soldering, it depends on your connections, as in which battery connectors you're using. It depends on your batteries. I find it very misleading when you get ESC manufacturers. They'll put 120 amps on a box and things like that, because that's normally a rating that's the maximum you could possibly get if everything was perfect. But actually, your average user of that ESC is probably getting more like 85 or 90 maximum.
Ideal circumstances with
Yeah,
a peak output, but not continuous.
yeah, for sure,
Usually,
for sure.
yeah.
And it also depends on the battery quality. And there's almost, I mean, there's such a low number of people that actually use high quality batteries that would possibly get anything near that output anyway. So it's kind of, that's a stat that that's not something we put on the website or anything like that, because you can't do a back-to-back comparison. You can't use 190 amps to compare it to another 180 amp ESC, because it's also, drifting is not really about that either. So yes, you might be able to get more power for a few seconds with this ESC over a different ESC, but for me, it's all about the feeling, and the internal resistance has been dropped so low now that it's just smoother than ever. And that's the one thing. It's the first thing people notice when they drive with Acuvance is how smooth it is. But you can keep tuning the settings and get it smoother and smoother and smoother. And then when you step to the new ESC, your base settings are smoother than you could possibly get it with the old one. So it's just great, and it's just
the way to set it up is pretty similar, right, compared to the old Xarvis?
Yeah, I mean, essentially all the settings are the same. Apart from the 3 new options you get on the Tau 2, all the settings are the same, and all the values for each setting are the same that you can choose, but the feeling is different. And obviously, to top it off with this, I swapped from an Overdose version 3 motor to the new Fledge, so everything felt different. And it was very strange for me going from the Overdose version 3, which is a screamer of a motor, to essentially the quietest motor I've used in a while. It's Fledge seems.
I was happy you made the switch, because it was loud. It was very loud.
It's funny because since I've been using the version 3, I've loved the noise, because it means you can hear your car on track. And I've used it at Cookies before, and I've used it in Japan before on hard surfaces. But there was something about Cookies last weekend, and it seemed louder than ever. It was a bit deafening, and it was a bit too full on, to be honest.
I was.
But I think maybe it's because I was tired. I'd had a very early start to the day, so maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, I was sitting in front of the straight, so every time you came by, that's the moment where you hit boost. Yeah, then you can definitely hear it.
That was just for you, Taj. That was
thanks.
No. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Fledge as well. And obviously with the Fledge now, you can run the fan on the motor. But let's just fire this camera across so I can point some of these things out. So obviously we've got the it's going to be a bit tricky to show the ESC, I think, but you'll have to excuse my wiring because it's one of the things we've got to sort. But on the Fledge, you've got the fan on the end bell, which is great, because actually one of the biggest problems you have with cooling a motor is cooling the sensor board. It ends up retaining a lot of heat, and because of the way it's built, it's often the first thing to fail on many people's motors. So to cool that is actually far better than to cool the other end. So this is a more efficient motor. It's also, in terms of cooling, a much more efficient motor. And it's, with this fan and the fan on the ESC, both were staying absolutely stone cold with Cookies, no matter how hard I was driving. So I can say conclusively they work pretty damn well. But yeah, I've got to sort my wiring out, unfortunately, on this, because I wasn't expecting to keep it rear motor, so I just left the wires super long, and I need to chop them right down because it's going to stay like this for a little while, I think.
Time for another trip to Cookies to get Martin to solder it again.
For sure. He already knows it's coming as well.
Yeah, and my favorite thing about the new Fledge is definitely the plugs. I was surprised to see that they were built in.
Yes.
It's one of those little eyesores that I always see on a bunch of different chassis. When we were doing the judging for best chassis at the D110 Worlds and the Euros, that was like one of the much overlooked items, the soldering and the plugs, where someone would spend so much time on color matching everything, and then there's big blobs of solder and crooked plugs. And
I've been guilty of that before, so I can't really complain.
No, but this is a nice thing to have the plugs built in.
So just to take a quick question from chat, Daniel Christoph's asked about the S-Bus feature of Futaba 7PX and the Xarvis XX. So currently you can, so that was actually the bug that I found when I was at Cookies, is I got my new ESC, put it in the car, and immediately updated the firmware to be the Futaba stuff from the Acuvance website. And basically that's not ready to go yet, and they shouldn't really have the file on the website because it's just the same as the Sanwa version. So everything works, but you can't update the 3 new options from your 7px. You can only update the old options, and the telemetry works, but it's a little bit buggy sometimes. There is a new update coming. They're working on it. They're also waiting for a Futaba update to come that will allow the 3 new options to appear on a 7px. Essentially, the problem they have is this is an Acuvance only ESC, whereas all the S-Bus stuff is for the Acuvance Jarvis and also the 970 Futaba ESC. Because there's no Futaba version of this, Futaba's not really in a big rush to put out the new update to add the features. So it will happen. There'll be a little bit of a delay, which also means there's a reason to hang on to your Tau 2, because when there's new updates like this, there's going to be options you need a Tau 2 for until Futaba do an update. So yeah, so basically anyone with getting a Xarvis XX at the moment needs to just leave the Sanwa firmware on and reverse the throttle channel for now. And they'll make an announcement soon when the new firmware for Futaba is available, and obviously I'll post that to my Facebook and share it as quickly as I can. But I don't think it'll be too long until it's coming.
See, helpful tips already.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's good to have the live chat here. So basically, let's make it a call for everyone as well, that if you have any questions, just send them in through the chat, because we are reading them. Maybe
Yeah,
not
for sure.
answering straight away,
Yeah.
but it's always good to get some input and some questions.
Yeah.
And
And
especially if something's
worst
on
case,
the
if we
topic,
don't get to it this week, we can get to it next week.
for sure, yeah.
And sometimes maybe, it'll help us decide what to talk about next week.
For sure, yes. So other news maybe might be nice to go into. I think that might be something that we'll have reoccurring as well on the podcast or the Pacecast, is some new products and stuff. So today I saw one of the new addiction body shells being posted, PS13 with the Pandem body kit on it. So the S13 Sylvia, which looks amazing. But I think one of the surprising things is that it's actually for a different scale. It's not the 1/10 scale that we're used to. It's a bit shorter. It's a bit narrower. They have a Corolla as well, A86, which is the same size. And you actually pointed this out to me, that it's a different scale, which for me was super exciting because it will also fit on some of my race cars actually.
Yeah, well,
so now
I don't think I'd have noticed, because when I've seen all the pictures and stuff online, I didn't notice. But actually, they announced that at the RCDC event in Nagoya in November, and the addiction owner was in the same group as me, so I got a lot of time to look at it while I was waiting for my practice sessions and whatever. And yeah, it's tiny, and it looks amazing when you put it next to other Corollas. It looks tiny, but you put it next to a Mark X or whatever, and it looks amazing. It's perfect scale. But
that's correct, yeah.
But I think, for me, I'd rather have the bigger size body so that the car drives better.
So what do you expect? Like, is this something we're going to see more often? I mean, if it was running in RCDC, then I guess it was also allowed to have the slightly different dimensions.
Yes, yeah. So basically in the RCDC rules, there's just maximum sizes. So it just has to fit inside of a box essentially. So it can be smaller, it's no problem, and it has to be under a certain weight on the rear axle. But I think it's definitely something people will try, because I think people need to be, well, they want to keep bringing out new products that are different. And I think it's definitely possible to just test this stuff, because it's not going to be a mainstream product that everybody goes out and buys, but somebody might, latch onto something, or it might be a new class that people decide to get into, or it might be just something people do for fun. Because one of the big things that I've realized over the years is that people who enjoy this hobby the most generally have more than one chassis, and they generally have their main chassis that they love, and they don't really want to do too much to other than tweak it to suit a track. And then they have another chassis that they like to test and play with and try crazy stuff. And I think this is perfect for that. You can, also the wrap up guys brought out the chassis sized conversion.
Yeah, that one was even smaller, right? Because that one had the Tamiya MX-5 body shell, with massive over fenders. So that makes me curious to see if this is going to be another trend maybe, or something that will stick around for a longer time. So of course we had the longer wheelbase.
Yeah,
So we've been playing around with different sizes and different scales a little bit.
yeah, for sure.
And it I think it never really caught on, the long wheelbase. There's still a few people driving it.
Well, it's
Um,
funny because I love the long
yeah,
wheelbase stuff. I had a couple of 275 DIBs that I loved, and I've been meaning to do a 275 YD2 for some time, but unfortunately, I don't drive enough at the moment to warrant having a chassis that's so different. And like I
yeah,
said at the start of this,
and body shells are difficult too. Like
yeah,
there's
for
not
sure.
that many 275 body shells available,
No,
which
and there's
yeah,
not,
which is a shame because they
and
look really really good.
there was, I think was it 8 when they first came out, 6. But you won't find every option available anymore. You'll find 2 options, like a Mark. It's normally the Mark X and the Mark II are the 2 options you can still get hold of.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone will prove me wrong and they'll tell me whether there's a stash of them or Yokomo will produce another batch or something like that. But they're generally pretty hard to get hold of. And I've been on the lookout for a 275 body for a while. We had a bunch in stock at RC Boss, and just when I went to buy them, they all sold out in a week. So that was a bit frustrating. So we need to get hold of some more. But yeah, I'm personally I'm much more interested in doing a long wheelbase 4-door than a short wheelbase smaller car. But at some point I'll do it just to test it, because for all I know it might be amazing. But I think the problem you have when you go short wheelbase is you also get narrower track, and the one thing that everybody is doing, or has been doing for the last few years, is going wider track to make the car more stable and give it more grip and more
Yeah.
response. And it's kind of the opposite with when you shrink everything down. So I think it makes it a lot more tricky.
Yeah, maybe it's also just about the total dimensions, because you're going short. So having a shorter wheelbase also means that your track width in comparison is
Mm.
still pretty wide.
Yeah,
I
I ended up seeing 2 of those Corollas running on that trip, and both were struggling. That's all I know.
yeah, I'm very curious to see it, and if more will come with the same options. I saw the conversion kit they do for it. It actually had 275, 260, and 240 all in
Yeah,
one set. So you can go long wheelbase and short wheelbase with the same kit, which is interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think the Rev D guys have been um, playing around with that as well, because I think they've been running
Hmm.
somewhere in the middle. They've been running short wheelbase at one end for a bit more response.
Okay.
And again, it's one of those things that might be a flash in the pan. It might be a short term thing, but it could also be the start of something. So we'll have to watch, see what they do, see how many people pick them up. I think it's the kind of thing with the Corolla body in particular. I think it might not be available for that long. So I think if you want one, you should probably get one now. And I was tempted because I do like a Corolla.
Yeah, and it's pretty much one piece. It has separate bumpers, but nothing else.
Yeah,
Makes
and
it good for me
and
too.
it also
Yeah.
just looks good. It looks like a
Hmm.
really. I mean, most of their bodies are pretty damn good these days, but it looks right, and that's the
Yeah.
hard thing for body manufacturers to do right. I think is to make the car actually look correct. So,
Especially with the AE86s, because they're always too
yeah,
big or a bit off here and there.
yeah, or the roof is too high, or they're a bit long, or the bumper
Yeah,
overhang is too, is off or whatever. So it works out
yeah,
just not quite looking right.
yeah. Because on the other hand, like other smaller scales, like Mini Z, for example, they're getting pretty popular now
Mm.
with the atomics and even some guys that I know, they switched completely from 110 scale to 128th,
I think it's
which is
28. Yeah,
interesting to see. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm curious to see where it's
I
going, if
haven't
there's
tried one of
anything
those.
new.
That's something I'd like to mess around with for sure. But it's when I do that, I don't know. That's one of those. Again, when I get a track open, it'll be one of those things I play with. But for now, I just
Yeah.
have to focus on improving my, or trying to either improve my skill level or at least keep it half decent.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, it's something you could put in the spare room or something, play
Yes,
around with
yeah,
that.
that's true. That's true. Maybe I need to clear the
While
garage
we
out.
wait for a local track.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because driving often is still difficult, at least for me. Because yeah, having a local track is key,
Yeah,
and even then, like it's still half an hour away, the whole day you spend on it. So I'm kind of tempted to give it a try, see if I can put some carpet down in the spare room and
yeah.
drive around at home.
I got some carpet
No,
if you want to buy some. It's no problem. You just have to rent a van and come and get it.
That's going to be difficult with Brexit, maybe, but we'll see.
Yeah. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Export.
Yeah.
All right.
So have you never, because you've got such a big collection of Mir stuff, have you never tried drifting one of the M chassis just for the fun of it?
M chassis, no. There's been quite a few people who've been playing around with it, and I've driven other people.
Yeah.
But most of mine, they're either four-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. I've drifted back when CS was not even a thing, when it was still 50-50.
Yeah.
You would slap some drainage pipe on your wheels as tires and have a go, which is fun, but it's always a bit twitchy, and the M chassis back then weren't even that good. Like the ones I have now, the newer ones, they're so much more technologically advanced that maybe it would work. But yeah, it's like you say, you have one chassis where you time on, you want to get right. Driving, I'm not driving too much. I'm spending all my time on just one. I also have a GRK that I haven't really touched. I built it, never driven it.
Same. I've got a GRK that I took the trouble to find the nice parts for, put it all together, and it's just sat there. The same as I've got a Travis. I've done the same thing with, but the Travis for me was something that I want to play around with the front high motor, and that's the only chassis really even now that still allows you to do that. Or the mid front high motor, I should say, because obviously the FRD5 will allow you to do the front high motor. But that's when I've got a track, I want to test some theories. There's no point in me trying to test that somewhere like Cookies because I'm not familiar enough with the place. I'm not there for long enough to do it. So it just has to wait, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that's half my collection is waiting for a permanent track again, unfortunately.
Yeah. So is mine. Like my old arm, like literally sitting right off the screen, waiting to be converted back to four-wheel drive. Playing around with CS some more. It's probably not going to happen in the near future.
It's funny because you mentioned CS because I'm really keen to get back into driving CS again. But again, it has to wait till there's more practice time. If I could double my practice time, I'd spend 25% of the overall time doing some CS. I think I think it improves your skill for sure. It's definitely harder, and it's definitely harder to do it at a consistently high level. So I think it's the guys that are still driving regularly, they keep their skill level very high for sure.
It's good throttle control practice. That's I think that's how most of us learned. Even for rear-wheel drive, it's very helpful to have sometimes, not just smashing the boost the whole time. Actually seeing and learning where the grip and the slide point is with your wheel speed and things like that.
Going back to when you started, did you use spools front and rear or 50/50 car?
No, one way.
You had a one-way front.
Yeah.
That was the thing that got me into drifting, and that was the thing that made drifting hard, for sure.
Because you were able to use a handbrake. That was the main advantage of having the one way. That was one of the key tricks in the very beginning. Super hard tires, maybe a little bit more steering lock, literally just cutting off the stoppers of the knuckles, nothing else.
And then you'd set your endpoints just to the point where the wheels would chatter.
Exactly.
And the drive shafts.
Until the shafts pop out.
And then you'd try and find the fancy shafts that let you have that extra 2 degrees.
Yeah, and then gluing up the rear diff.
Yeah.
Taking out the balls from a ball diff and putting like inner tube from a bike in it to make sure it stays locked. Yeah. Those were the fun tricks.
Yeah, I just generally melted the ball diff until it stayed locked. But it works. Fun. Yeah.
Later, I found out they actually make bushings that you can replace the balls with that actually make it a spool. Never knew that. Nope. Something again that they had in Japan, never made it here, and now I know. Too late.
Yeah, man.
Well, yes.
So we've been going for an hour and just over an hour.
Perfect.
I think it's probably time to wrap up for this week. But we'll definitely get. If anyone's got any requests for stuff for us or any subjects for us to talk about next week or topics, just either message one of us or leave a comment below, and we'll definitely get to it. But we're hoping to make this a weekly thing. and we're definitely going to be evolving it and tweaking things quite a little bit, just to get it running smoother, less buggy. Hopefully we can
a little bit better every week.
Yes, hopefully we can make tires a little bit less pixelated next time. But we'll have to see how that goes.
Yes. Yeah. So I hope everyone enjoyed watching the podcast, listening to it. I'm very curious to see what the suggestions are going to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe in the future we can pick a topic for the next week so we can get some
Yeah.
input. But maybe that's the question now, to see what you would like to see in the next episode, the next week.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you have any suggestions, I'm very happy to hear what it's going to be, and
Yeah, for
we'll
sure.
try to make it work.
Yeah, and
Same
hopefully,
goes.
next week we don't have to spend quite so long figuring stuff out, so we can spend a bit more time planning what we're going to discuss. But yeah, we got it started. That's the important bit.
Eventually, we'll get pretty much fixed time, so everyone can tune in.
Yes.
But at least now you know. So if you watch this first episode, maybe almost from the beginning, you're one of the lucky first.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
And we'll
yes.
announce what time it's
Surprise.
going to be next week. I think probably 7 UK time. That's what we'll aim for. We'll see if we can get there. Unfortunately, it has to fit in with the rest of life. But yeah, well, thanks for tuning in anyway. And like I say, if you can leave us some comments if you want to see us discuss some particular topics, but also maybe just drop us a like, maybe subscribe to the channel so you get notified when we're going live, and feel free to share it as well. You know, this video will end up on YouTube now, do some processing and be available in a short while. So if you know someone you think might want to watch, then send them a link. Hopefully we can get a few more viewers. A bit more interaction would be nice.
Yes, much appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, thanks again, and we'll catch you next week.